Okay, give me 1 second. Done. So just checking the stream, make sure that everything's up and running. And then we'll get going. I'm going to do a sound check, just making sure that everything's good. And then we'll get going. I'm going to do a sound check, just making sure that everything's good. And then we'll get going. Just making sure that everything's good. Perfect. Okay, we are looking groovy. Right, okay, so let's talk about tonight's stream. So, I follow a group on Facebook called Microsoft Flight Simulator for PS5, I think it's called. And one of the things we see quite regularly is people asking what they think are stupid questions. Now, what is really disappointing is on that flight simulator community sometimes, there are people on there that think they know it all, and because they think they know it all, unfortunately their responses are in such a tone that it's actually not helpful. And one of the things we found, or I've seen more recently, is how do I take off? How do I set my flaps? Why isn't my approach working? Why am I too high? Why am I too fast? So we're going to address a couple of those things. Just a little bit about me, because I know that this is going to be viewed at least by 2 people after the stream who've messaged me asking me to put it on. Background, so I am a aircraft engineer working on helicopters primarily. I've been doing that for just over 15 years now, and I've worked on Lynx helicopters, the Augusta Westerns or EH-101 Merlin helicopters, and Sea King helicopters, so primarily helicopters which you'll find in the military. Now what that does for me, that gives me a broad range of experience across 3 completely different airframes that were designed at completely different times, using and utilising 3 different types of systems, so digital, analog, and then a mix of the 2. So I've got the experience there. Flying wise, so I'm about 18 hours into my PPL. I haven't flown for a while, mind you, so I'll probably have to start all over again. And I have regularly dabbled, and by regularly I'd say I've probably got about 100 hours in gliders, primarily flying over Wales and the Black Mountains, which is always great fun. So the purpose of tonight's stream is basically to do a run through of circuit flying. It's to do a run through of an ILS approach and then a general handling questions that we get thrown at us. I'm conscious we probably won't get many people in tonight, but regardless, this stream is going to be available on Twitch for 7 days. Excuse me. And it will be available permanently on my YouTube. So we will get started and at least get in the sim ready for 8 o'clock. Now what I've done here is I have invited other people to come and fly with us. And again, it all depends on whether people can be bothered. Which obviously isn't a bad thing. If people don't want to, people don't want to. However, what I have asked people to do is just to fly along with me in the sim. So looking at what we're going to do now. So this is, this is all about general handling and circuit flying. So we don't just go to our flight school and say, hey man, can I fly a 737? All right, so we're not going to fly a 737 because it's completely unrealistic. We are going to fly the Cessna 172, which could be used as a trainer aircraft. I do have the 152, but it doesn't have autopilot. And because it doesn't have autopilot, it would be a waste of time me showing you about an ILS approach, when the actual plan is to use the autopilot for that. Bearing in mind, you can do an ILS approach using a Cessna 152 without autopilot. However, it's not fully automated. You have to actually fly it yourself, which obviously isn't a problem. It's not a problem at all. So let's have a look. We're going to choose the 172, and we are going to depart from Birmingham, the United Kingdom, EGBB, and we're going to do it from the spool stand on the west side of the airport. Hopefully, if my... Let me just see. I'm going to assume, I think gate 1 is on the east side. Sorry, the west side, but we'll see. And all we're going to do is we're going to jump up and we're going to go around the area in and around Birmingham. Now, bearing in mind that we are starting at 8 o'clock, we are a couple of minutes shy. So I won't actually start the meaty stuff until then. But what this does give me a chance to do is actually talk about one element that we never see. Oh, we're on the east side. One element. Oh, brilliant. What's really good here is I've also not set the weather. So let me quickly sort that out. We don't want to fly at night because you won't be able to see anything that I'm doing. So let's come up here and we'll click on the weather map and we'll go for a custom and we'll go for, let's go for, oh my god, that sun's bright. We'll go for a nice early morning flight today and we're going to have clear skies. Absolutely perfect. 15 degrees and the pressure at 1013. We'll use 1013 just because it is easy to use. Now, why is 1013 easy to use? The reason for that is that is the standard pressure. So when you get above a transition altitude, you'll set your altimeter to 1013.25. So essentially what this means is all aircraft working above the transition altitude are working on the same pressure setting. Now, what is the problem if they're not? So the problem is with that is if I'm working on 1013 and I'm reporting at 1,000 feet, there could actually be someone working at 1018, operating at 1,200 feet, but actually in realistic terms, we're both at 1,000 feet, okay? Because altitude will change based on static pressure. So it is important that figure is, in terms of collision avoidance, other than the usual stuff of looking out for yourself, that number, that figure, that setting on the altimeter is hugely important. It's one thing we shouldn't take lightly. The other thing I want to talk about, because we are going to be doing VFR flight rules, and I'm hoping that this... sorry, my voice is gone because I've been having a little fight with the kids today. By fight, I mean play fight. Is we want to talk about the actual area around us. So you can see here, hopefully it's depicted quite well. We have our airspace. And you'll see that sector around here. So this is the Birmingham sector here. Obviously, all different classes of airspace around here. That's for a different day that we'll talk about airspace. However, for now, we're not going to be using ATC. There's no one else flying around here. There is one airplane there. I don't know if that's a real-time flyer or a live traffic, but we're not too concerned about those. But what I want to talk to you about here is aircraft charts. Airport charts and why they're important. So again, what we're going to do here, we're going to put that we are flying at Birmingham. And these are available openly on sites such as SimBrief. And you'll probably notice here I've not actually put on my battery yet. Good reason for it. If I put my battery on now, it's going to drain. Anyway, we're going to go on to the charts here because the charts are quite important. And we'll talk about what we need from the charts in a minute. The first one is weather. Now, again, this is the sim weather in real time. So again, because we're flying free flight and we're flying with our own settings, this is not a true reflection of the simulator, okay? So sometimes don't always believe what's in here unless you are flying real world weather. This is a METAR and you've got a TAF, so basically weather information. So again, different lesson or session altogether, talking through all of these and what they are. Temporarily, probability or probably, rain and drizzle, broken, all that sort of stuff you could easily learn elsewhere on a different day. We won't go into that now. The other thing we care about is the runway. So at the moment, this is recommended runway 15, and this is the thing we care about because we are about to go on an ILS approach, is our ILS frequency. So there's two runways here, being the same runway, but obviously different ends. We have runway 15, and we've got runway 33. Now, the reason why they're called runway 15 and runway 33 is they are heading approximately in that direction. Now, with this one here, its magnetic heading is actually 146 degrees, and its true heading is 146 degrees. That often doesn't align. We always go with magnetic heading. So these are the two really important aspects that we need for a ILS approach. We need the ILS frequency, and that combines the glide slope and the basically the localiser. And it's quite important now that we talk about what those are, because when we get up in the air, we're not going to have a lot of time to talk about it. The localiser is a set of antennas that span the width of a runway. Now, when I've tried to actually look at them here, I don't know if I can do it. Let's have a look here. Let me quickly get out of the aircraft, see if you can see them. I'm not too worried if we can't, but they are, if we have a look where we are here, you got the runway there. You can't really see them, but at the bottom of the runway down there, you have a bunch of antennas spanning the width of the runway, and they send out a pulse down the center line of the runway. Okay, and the reason why we put 146 in there is because that is the runway heading. Okay, so that runway there, although that's runway 33, we're going to be coming in from that direction there, where that Ryan airplane has just landed. It's heading a 146. So what that will do, that will track that ILS, and it can tell by basically differentials in signals hitting the antennas. If I don't want to go too much into the physics and the engineering behind it all. Basically, this has got two antennas sat at the front called homing antennas. It'll hit one before it hits the other, and that time delay gives you left and right data. Okay, really boring stuff. And the second one is the glide slope. So the glide slope is an antenna which sits vertically, and it'll be somewhere, I'm not sure where it is at Birmingham, it basically sits somewhere next to the runway, and that puts a radio frequency basically at an angle, usually 3 degrees, into the air. And again, just like the localiser, you've got to intercept that through the middle. One of the things I saw today on the group was actually that a lot of people are confusing ILS approaches and auto land to using barometric pressure. Okay, barometric pressure is not used for ILS settings. Okay, ILS is purely radio frequencies. Now, one other thing I need, we need to talk about is this element. Again, the heading, we'll tune that in a second. And you've got frequencies here for the tower. What we are going to do, we are going to have a look at the approach charts here. And because we are on our ILS approach, we are going to be looking at the arrivals. And these are primarily for standard arrivals. Not too worried about those. We'll look at these approach charts here. ILS DME 15. Okay, you've got NDBs, non-directional bearings, and distance measuring equipment. Basically, it's going to tell us how far we are away from that antenna. Now, with this chart here, once I've loaded it up, really easy to ascertain. You can see there's a minimum height criteria here of 1,000 feet, and then you've got your approach chart through for ILS, and it gives you heights and altitudes where you need to be at certain points. So with that glide slope, and that glide slope that's coming up here, bearing in mind that's the glide slope there, with a glide path of 3 degrees at distance 6.7, so 6.7 nautical miles from the runway. Once we're established, it will keep us at 2,500. When we reach D 6.7, we will travel down at 146 degrees, heading in the runway, at a glide path of 3 degrees. Okay, that takes us around to our basically the base of the runway. Okay, so it's quite important. Obviously, at Cedar, which is a waypoint along the way, we're expecting to be at 1640. One of the things to bear in mind here is this is accurate height above ground. The best way to gauge that is through RADALT. Now, RADALT is radar altitude, and I don't believe the Cessna has it. Okay, so whilst we do prefer to use RADALT, obviously if it hasn't got it, we do have to use static pressure, which is why it's really important to have the QNH, which is correct. So what's going to happen is we fly in and we intercept the localiser at 146. We click approach, and the aircraft will take us down. Then what you'll find is it'll take us down to so far, and then it will just stop working. Okay, it gets oversaturated, and it hasn't got an auto-land feature, so it will just stop us. Other things to bear in mind is, and one common fault that people have, is they will try and fly an ILS approach on a circuit. So by a circuit, basically we'll take off from waypoint 15, and we'll go on the upwind leg. So the upwind leg is this straight leg here. And we'll come a few miles out. We're going to extend it today, and we get to a certain point. And then what we need to do, we need to turn left, approximately 90 degrees, and we'll come up this way. And when we come up that way, that is our crosswind leg. Okay, after that, by the time we get to the end of our crosswind leg, we should have done our after takeoff checklist. We should be okay with the pressures, temperatures, and all that sort of stuff. And preferably, the flaps will be up. We then begin our downwind leg. Now the downwind leg will take us parallel to the runway, about a couple of miles out, and that will take us all the way up the side of the runway. And we'll come past the runway. Now bearing in mind that I've flown gliders more than I've flown planes, usually you'll fly at a 90-degree angle back, around about 90 degrees. However, in a glider, because we haven't got an engine, we'll cut that to a 45 degrees. And we'll usually be aiming for our wings level at the threshold around 800 feet. Okay, that gives us plenty of time, plenty of flex to get into the runway. For this, we are going to be doing an extended downwind leg. For the first one, just to get the circuit orientation right, we'll do a touch and go, and then we'll come in for the ILS. We'll also talk about pre-landing checklists, and we'll talk about our cruise checklist as well. So the basics to remember is we need to make sure that we set our ILS before we go out. We'll talk about that. The other thing to remember is never intercept an ILS from a 90-degree angle, because when you do that, the aircraft will struggle. Okay, so I would often recommend the minimum angle that we take into an ILS approach is a 45 degrees. So for example, this here, coming out here would be 90 degrees, so we never approach from that angle there. We're coming up 45 degrees up here. It means the aircraft has got plenty of time to sort itself out. So anyway, I've spoken now for a good 9 minutes. So let's get into the aircraft. Now for this, I'm not interested in doing the going through the startup procedure. Okay, we're not here to learn about the startup procedure of a Cessna. So I'll run through it straight away, and we will then get going basically. So we're going to quickly put these in. I'll talk you through it as I go on. So we've got fuel pump primed, we've got the pitot heat off, and we've got cabin power 2 off. We've checked our fuel. We're going to set to both so we don't get an imbalance immediately, and make sure our fuel valve is open. Mixture is fully in, throttle to around 2%. Get that 2 notches. Okay, and we're going to quickly check our prop. No one's in our prop note, so we've got the avionics master switch off, and we're going to switch on our engine. Engine starts, and at this time what we're doing now, engine doesn't start. I don't think I held it for long enough. Let's give it a little bit more of this. There we are. Okay, why is this engine not starting? We've got mixture fully in. I've not closed that. Hang on a minute. It's because I've tried starting the aircraft with all the blanks. We got ahead of ourselves. So engine rightfully, I've probably wrote the aircraft off now because I've tried to start it with the blanks. Completely forgot that these were in. I was just thinking there's absolutely no reason why that should stop. So we'll get these off. And I'll have a word with my ground crew later on because they've obviously forgotten that. Now, we'll turn the engine on. And now we have engines going. Okay, so our engine's there. Now we've not got blanks shredded up in there. Obviously, if this was real life now, I wouldn't fly the aircraft. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're just going to increase the revs just a little bit to around 1,000. Maybe 800 to 1,000. And the primary reason for that is just to get the engine oil and temperature risen. You'll see that on the screens here. Okay, oil temperature, we want that in the green really. If we was just depart now and get up, the oil temperature really isn't at the right state for flight. Now we've got that running, we're going to turn the alternators on, which here are on actually. We've turned on a minute ago. We're going to turn the avionics masters on. You'll see this screen comes on the G1000, and we'll press enter and start it. Okay, we're going to check our altitude at 1013.25, which it is. So we're currently 320 feet above ground, which is accurate. And we're going to carry out our after flight checks. We're going to turn off the fuel pump. We're going to get ready for taxi. And I'm not using air traffic control on this. They're probably going to shout at us, but I don't really want to do it. And we're going to check our standby altimeter as well. Make sure that's at 1013.25 or 2992. With this as well, we're going to set our trim. Set trim for takeoff, which is approximately there, I'd say. Yep, that's good. And we're going to set flaps 5. Okay, so let's very quickly talk about our aircraft quick flying control check. Left and right, let's put our yoke back in. Now that we're not in the way of the screen, left and right, forward and back. We can check that outside. Forward and back, left and right, perfect. Now, some people, I'll talk about the lock that happens sometimes, but actually for now, what we can do is we can just program in our ILS. So what we do here, we've got the nav frequency here, and if you remember rightly, what we need is 110.10. Again, on this chart, you can see it up here, 110.10. 110.10, and we'll switch. Now what you'll see here is if we switch to CDI, our localizer, you can see that it's actually alive. Okay, we have a localizer now. Now the other thing to bear in mind, if you remember here, we've got the 146 degrees. This is our intercept heading. So if I go on the course switch, which is here, to 146, if I come right back, I went the wrong way, evidently. If we go to 146, fine tune it. Perfect. Okay, so there's a few things to note here. Is when we go on to the chart, you will see that this is IBER. Okay, so you've got here IBER. Now, one of the really important things to note here is this. Why is that important? If you're unsure whether you've got the right runway, bear in mind some airports have multiple runways, you can check this. So this is Morse code. So it goes did. Okay, so that's me talking Morse code. That's one for later. Yeah, so Morse code. Now, what is fantastic, if we actually put on here, on this side over here, we should be able to hear it. Where is nav 1? It is here. Hear that? Ready? Beep, beep. Long beep. Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep. So that's telling us that we are on IBER. Okay, we'll turn it off because that'll frustrate us. The other thing to bear in mind as well is we're tuned into IBM here. Bear in mind that where we are on the runway at the moment, we have got IBER, so IBM as opposed to IBER. Okay, once we move, it will switch to IBER. Enough talking. Let's go and have a flight. So we're going to have the brakes off immediately, and we'll just taxi around here. Bear in mind that I'm not using air traffic control. They're probably going to shout at us. I don't care about taxi speed. Okay, we're just literally going to get to the runway. So currently we are on basically the bottom side of Birmingham. At this point as well, because I haven't done it, let's get back in. We'll quickly turn our taxi lights on. Oh, they are on. I did turn it on. Okay, we'll come back out again. I don't care about the taxi speed at the moment, so don't judge me. And bearing in mind that at the moment we're heading 270, we're going to be taking off on runway 15. Now, one thing I'll demonstrate quite quickly is the frequency and the heading. Now, I'll show you this as we get closer to the runway, and it's basically watching our localizer move. Now, if you watch that green line, if I just slow down, as I come closer to the runway, that green line is also going to come closer into the center of where my plane is. We're looking at that one there. As we get closer to the runway, you'll see it coming in once it activates. Okay, we're still a little bit too far away from it at the moment. Once we get onto the taxiway next to the runway, you should see it. As we get in, again, I'm at 31 knots. Don't judge me for the taxi speed. We want to get airborne. Now watch this green line. Okay, that green line is essentially how far left and right we are. So we'll come over here. That green line should, he says, should get closer. Okay, if it doesn't here, we'll certainly get it closer in a second. Okay, it won't get closer now, but it'll get closer in a second. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to slow down because otherwise we are going to get airborne in a second. Now bear in mind that these aircraft that you can see in the distance, they are AI. So by going in front of them, I'm not going to trouble them. If it was an actual real world player, I'd probably have a little bit more respect there. And what I can do is I can tell you now, you can see that line's just flipped. Okay. Now hopefully here I can show you the antennas that we spoke about a little bit earlier on. As we start slowing down, okay, I'll come back into the aircraft. Now watch that green line. As I approach the centre line, and as I go past the centre line. So, as I come towards the centre line, that localiser is going to align. You'll see it. I'll use the Garmin to help me. See that line coming in. Okay, so if I stop here at around 1 division, okay, I've stopped. That line has also stopped. Look what happens as I come towards the centre. That line gets closer. Okay, now as I line myself up with the runway into the centre, if I come centre here, dead centre, I think that line is going to be pretty much dead centre. There we go, let's have a look at that. Parking brake on here, pretty much dead centre, okay, so it's showing that we are a little bit, if we're being picky, a little bit to the left, okay. We're also heading 145, so if we move to 146, it'll be aligned. But that is the proof there that the localiser lines up, okay, with the runway at 146 degrees. Bear in mind we're at 145, okay, so we're a little bit out, but yeah. Okay, so there is the proof straight away that the localiser works. Okay, the second thing you eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed is it actually says no glide slope. Now the reason for that is we are beneath it. Okay, so at that point, bearing in mind that the antenna for the glide slope is somewhere down here, we are beneath it. Okay, way beneath it. It can't even touch us. What you'll see as we go out, you'll see it. Okay, you will see it. So what do we need to talk about here? I'm not going to talk about checklists or anything like that. We're literally here just to discuss general handling. We're here to discuss a circuit approach or a circuit. And we're going to discuss an ILS approach. For this, we are going to set our circuit height at 1000. And because I do want to talk a little bit, we are going to use the autopilot for height hold. I've got a plane landing above my head, I believe. There it is. That's cool. Okay, so let's talk about the takeoff. So in a minute we are going to take off and we're going to slightly, we're going to put the power in initially and we're going to judge it. We're going to have a look. Now, we've got a huge runway here. It's massive. 747s can take off here, A380s can take off here, okay, and we will use that if need be. And what you'll notice, I'll take off and I won't use full power at first because it's very easy to overtalk on Flight Simulator. We'll do it gradually, okay? And as you can see here, we're going to lift off at around 48 knots. Okay, obviously there's a lot of variables in that. The wind is calm, there's no crosswind or anything like that, so I'm expecting to get straight up at 48 knots. Once we're up, you'll see that I will stay level with the runway for a minute. That's to gain the speed before we climb. Okay, so let's get set up. Let's get our landing lights on, our taxi lights off, and our strobes on. We're doing our quick checklist. Flaps are 10, trim is set, and then usually now you check stuff like harnesses, windows, and all that. Hit check in fuel. We've currently got 44% of fuel. As you can see, we've also got plenty of fuel here. We've got a slight imbalance on the left compared to the right. So when we're airborne, if we care that much, we can switch our tank to our left tank or to our right tank. Okay, but for this now, we're going to go with centre. We've also got oil pressure is in the green, the GPH, oil temperature, and volts AC, and fuel quantity all in the green, so we are happy. On this then, what we're going to do, we are going to do a power check. So we get to 1700. Let's get to 1700. And again, we know this is going to be fine. 1700 there. We'll do our magneto checks. We'll get rid of this in a minute. Magneto checks. Make sure there's not a drop of 150 and then 50 between the RPMs. You see the RPMs dropping there. 1590, so 110, plenty. And it's not dropped there, so we're within limits. Okay, and with that, what we're going to do now, set to around 2,200 for the takeoff. And we're just going to get lined up. And again, see that gradual there. If you have a look at the power, we're in the green zone. We're happy here. Now, what sometimes people find is when they take off as well, and I'm going a little bit to the right there, and you can see the snatching from the PlayStation remote, is I'm going to leave this to roll a minute. I'll tell you what, actually, we'll get up in the air. Got plenty of speed there to get up in the air. So we're up in the air. You'll see now I'll level off just slightly. Level off, get the forward speed. Once we've got that forward speed, we can climb. I'm going to set my trim now to climb. There it is, perfect. And you can see in the middle here, I'm going to fly along the localiser, okay? Along the centre of the runway. There we are. Okay, so the other thing to bear in mind here is that our glide slope is going to come alive. We're going to fly on instruments for a minute. Let's get back over here. And into the centre of the runway. Okay, so we've got a good climb there, 500 to 600 foot per minute, and a good speed of 78 knots. Okay, so we're doing all right here. Now what you'll see is our localiser comes alive in a minute. Not localiser, you might see our glide slope. There's our glide slope. Okay, it came back on, and if you have a look here, the diamond's down the bottom. Here, that means we are below our glide slope. Okay? Sorry, we are above our glide slope. Alright, we're too high. We'll talk about that all in a minute. Okay, our speed is reducing, so we'll get that back on because we're quite high in the old with the old attitude then. Okay, and we're at 800 feet. Looking outside now, I'm going to bring my flaps up. Okay, and as we spoke before, we're going to do a crosswind leg. Now we know we're at 150. Take away the old 90 degrees, and we're going to turn that to 60 degrees here. We're going to fly at 60 degrees. We're going to slow down a little bit. There we are. And we're going to level off here. Okay, so we should be, and a good indication of whether we're at 90 degrees or not is this. We need to be at 90 degrees to the localiser. Okay? And we'll cruise here. Okay, so that's our first step. Okay, that is our crosswind leg. A little bit less than 90 degrees. Next one is we're going to turn base. So again, we turn now to a heading of 330. Okay, and again, we can use our ILS to show us that when we are parallel with the runway. Bearing in mind that at this point, all that we're going to be doing in reality is actually using our visual references. Okay, so we're looking at the airport here. Okay, so I'm going to head up. So we're straight with runway 30, and again, we're at 1,200 feet here. Sorry, 1,100 feet. Okay, that is plenty. We don't need to be any higher than that. Okay, and I'm going to fly this. At this point, I would have carried out my after takeoff checklist, and at this point now, I'll also be beginning my approach checklist. Okay, there is an acronym called bump fitch, which would you really use, covers everything from brakes, mixture, to harnesses and windows, all that sort of stuff. Okay, carb heat. We're not going to do that. Okay, but we're flying along the runway. At the moment, you can see the threshold for runway 33 is there. The middle of the runway is where that EasyJet is, and then you'll see that our threshold for runway 15 is a little bit further up here. Okay, now at that point as well, what we want to do is we want to make sure we're around 800 to 900 feet for the base leg, and this is the point where you would call base. Now at this point, we're not worried about the ILS approach. We're not going to be doing ILS just yet. We'll do the normal approach first for a circuit. Okay, and you can see here I've just put a little bit of trim in to start descending. Okay, now what I'm waiting for here is I'm waiting for my wing. So if you see here, we are currently just a little bit off. We're headed in a little bit, but I'm waiting for my wing to come parallel with the end of the runway. Okay, now if I was on a glider now, I'd be turning 45 degrees and coming in. Okay, we are going to extend our downwind leg a little bit, only because I came in a little bit because I was looking outside and talking. But at this point, and this is where a lot of people fall foul, is they worry about coming in really fast. Okay, they're coming in really fast because they will just smash the left aileron in and they'll fly their approach without actually thinking about the approach. So that means they're too high. Because they're too high, they're battling to get down, and because they're battling to get down, they're way more than 3 degrees on their angle of attack coming in, and they're too fast. So what we do now, we slow down. Okay, you'll see as I slow down, the nose drops. Okay, so we have to trim for that, or we have to obviously exercise, put the cycling. Okay, we are going to trim for that slightly, and we're going to slow down. Okay, at this point, notice that blue bug is coming up. I'll talk about that on the next round. Next point now, we're within flap range. I'm going to set my flaps to 1. And bearing in mind that our takeoff speed is around 55 to 60 knots. Okay, this is where you start accounting for stuff like wind and gusts. Okay, but we're going to do our approach at around 65 knots. And now I'm going to come. Have a look here. You'll see the ILS is starting to come in. Again, because we're VFR, we should be looking at the runway. I'm too busy talking. You'll see the runway. We've gone, it's over here. Look, we've gone past it. So I'm going to come in, and I'm going to line myself. And again, I'll keep an eye on that speed. Careful not to overbank the aircraft. That's because I'm too busy ditting on and talking. So that wasn't a great example of a base leg, but you get me. And I'm going to keep this attitude and angle, okay? And as we're coming in, I'm getting lined up now. So this picture is really important, okay? I'll turn before I get to where I need to turn. This is where this picture becomes really important, okay? We're a little bit fast, so we'll slow down and we'll line up with that runway. We're using the ILS here to help us. Okay, we're a little bit far to the left. Okay, as I come over, you'll see that I can't see the touchdown markers. Now, a lot of people have this tendency to go the attitude down. Okay, now look at the speed. Our speed increases. We're not going to do that. Okay, what we do here is we actually release the power. So as I'm coming in and I start losing sight of that, I'm going to drop the speed. Okay, so I'm releasing power. Now you can't see the throttle, but I'm bringing the throttle in, and that nose drops. Okay, as that nose drops too far, like it's doing now, I'm going to add a bit of power. Okay, add that power and you find that sweet spot, okay? And you're coming down, okay? Little high, so drop that power. I'll give it a little bit of pitch, but I want to rely on the power. There's the power, perfect. Okay, I'm going to drop the power a bit more now and trim for this because I need to reduce the speed. Remember, I'm aiming for those touchdown markers there. Coming in now, okay, full power off because I'm a little bit fast. We said our approach is going to be around 70 knots. Second notch of flaps coming in now. Bear in mind the nose wants to come up, there it is. As I come in, and again a common thing for the landing is we get into ground effect and we flare. So there's the flare, and all I'm doing now is I'm facing the end of the runway, looking at the end of the runway, looking at the end of the runway, looking at the end of the runway, pulling back, there's the light touch, okay? And we're good. So you can see there's a little bit of a wobble, uneven surface. We're now going to put 1 notch of flaps up, increase the power to 2.2, we're going to take off again. Okay, we're at takeoff speed again. So launch up quickly, well not too quickly, get the speed, so again I'm nicely on the floor, not touching the floor, and then I come up. Got the forward speed, good for the climb. Now I can reduce that trim as well. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is we're going to set the autopilot to on. Let me get that in a climb configuration, and I'm also going to set the heading to a heading of 146. So we're going to go autopilot on, flight director is on, we're going to turn on our heading, you'll see what the heading does now. Heading will turn, and we're going to set our altitude to on. It will hold the current altitude that we're at. You can see our vertical speed indicator coming down. So what we need to do, we need to initiate vertical speed mode up. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Get it up here to 500 foot per minute. Okay, and at this point now I'm also going to bring my flaps up and lower my throttle. Okay, you can see we're quite far off the from the airport now. Okay, we're going to talk about the ILS approach. So this point here, again, we do another 90 degrees. So again, the best way and easiest way to do this when you're working on your ILS frequencies is if we've got 147 there, we're going to want it around 5.7 here, 90 degrees out. So all we do, heading bug, take it around to 90 degrees. to around 57 degrees. There we go. And it goes around quite fast. It'll overcook it by the look of it. There you go, it's overcooked it a little bit. Basically the bank angle's too much. We're going too fast. Cool. Once we've got, and we can use this as a visual representation. Because we're going to do the ice approach, we're going to go out a little bit further. Okay, we're going to come out to about here. And then we'll come up. We'll talk about something else as we are on the downwind leg. Okay, so that's good. We're at 1,000 feet. If you have a look here, we're at exactly where we need to be for the glide slope. The glide slope is now above us. Okay, and we're going to get some speed here. So put a bit more revs into the engine here. There we go, get a bit more speed. And now we're going to turn it another 90 degrees. If you have a look now, we're going to go for around 330. Let's go to where the ILS is pointing. At 326. Okay, it will overcook it again. Okay, now watch this. As we get closer to the airport, watch what happens to the glide slope. Okay, the glide slope is currently above us, and the glide slope is now coming down. Okay, so at the moment the glide slope is above us, it's above us. When it gets to this line, we are at the opportune moment for glide slope intercept. Okay, we have intercepted the glide slope. What happens is as it goes below us, and you'll see in relation to our position, we'll be right at the side of the airport over here. We are now at the intercept for the glide slope, but as we go past it, the angle of the glide slope is actually beneath us. Okay, so we need to put in more of a dive to get down on it. Okay, so at this point now, you can still save it, but if it came down to this point here, you're probably best to go around. Now, because that's why it's saying now, no glide slope. So we are going to go out to around Cedar. Now, if I take you back to the Birmingham approach and onto the charts. So if we go here onto charts and we look at our approach for ILS, you'll see that actually Cedar, if you have a look here at D4, so 4 miles from the runway, that is Cedar. Okay, we should be at 1,640. Okay, and you'll see now that looking here, Cedar is here. So if we're doing an ILS approach, by Cedar, we need to be at 1,640 to intercept at the let's go back so you can see it on here. If we go to either 6.7 miles from touchdown, we should be at 2,500. So let's have a go. Let's get up to 2,500. And let's do a full-on ILS approach. And I'm going to prove something in just a second as well. So we'll get up to 2,500. We'll set our climb to a ridiculous rate of knots as well, because we've got the speed here to be able to do it. Watch that speed coming down. As soon as that speed comes down too much, I'll reduce it. Yeah, way too much. There we go, we'll bring that back up. That's manageable. Okay, see that glide slope now? Because we're climbing, that's going to come at us double the time. Okay? Come up to 2,500, well, we're at 1,500, another 1,000 to go. I'm watching that speed. I don't want that speed to drop down too much. There we are. So this is good. Another 700 feet to go, so another minute. and we'll talk about this. So at the moment, you can see, if I come back here, on this, where is it? I am currently trying to find where it says it. Should give us the distance. It hasn't. Should give us the distance up here.
Stall.
Don't worry about that for a minute. Got plenty of scope there. We're at 2.2, so again, it's me trying to get up to 2005 quite quickly. There we go. Perfect. I'll get back up. Okay, perfect. So at the moment, the glide slope is below us. All right. Now, again, if we have a look on this map, you'll see where we are now. So we're coming up to, there's Cedar. We've gone past Cedar, so we're going up to distance now. Where are we going? We are going to D6. Is it 6.7? 6.7. Okay, we should be at 2,500. Okay, and at the moment we are above the glide slope, which means that we are further away from, well, not just as far. We're nearly there. Let's just wait for it to come. You'll see that as we get to 2,500, when we get to the point we need to be at, the glide slope will come up, okay? And that is 6.7 miles. So as soon as that's in the centre, I know I'm 6.7 miles away. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do a 180 in a second. I'm going to prove to you how difficult it is for an aircraft to intercept the ILS at 90 degrees. And then I'll show you how much easier it is to intercept it at 45 degrees. Bear in mind that we are in a Cessna 172 here. It's going to be quite easy for it to intercept at 90 degrees. But when you're in a 737 or an Airbus, this is where people struggle. Now that I'm happy that the glide slope is above us, I know that if I turn at 90 degrees to the ILS, that glide slope is always going to be above me. Okay, for the sake of this, I am going to let it go above me by just a few more notches. And the reason for that is, it gives me that chance to that 180. Perfect. Okay, so we're a notch above, which is fine. Now this is going to be the ILS approach at 90 degrees. So if we have a look at the map and have a look at where we are, you can see here that we are 90 degrees, bearing in mind Birmingham's down here, we're 90 degrees to our runway. So again, as we've been following that, we're now going to go to 236 degrees, okay, 90 degrees out. So we'll come around. Now I'm going to do nothing here except press nav mode. What is going to happen now? Nothing's happening, and the reason for that is we are not on a navigational path, so it cannot intercept it. Okay, and I'll prove that to you in just a moment. That's going to... no, it's not going to overcook it, which is good. Okay, let's prove that navigational path theory. So, by now, because I've selected nav, I would expect heading to come off, and I'd expect nav to be on. However, you can clearly see up here that I'm in heading mode still. By hovering over here, you can still see I've got heading on. The reason for that is, even though I've activated navigation mode, we are not on a navigational path. So again, this is the mistake that some people that are new to the sim make, is they think that by pressing nav, the aircraft is automatically going to fly and find it. It's not. Okay, you have to be within the navigational path. Now there's a very clear indication, here it is, localiser. Now we are on the navigational path. Look what happens when we try to intercept at 90 degrees. That localiser goes past us. Okay, we've gone from the left side of the runway to the right side of the runway. Look what happens. So the runway, as you can see, is down there where that blue marker is. We've gone past it to the left. Now look what happens as it comes in here. Bearing in mind, if I speed this up a little bit, it might work. It might show a better example. I think this might capture it. Yeah, it's going to be fine. Here you can see the runways down here. We've now caught it. It's just making those fine adjustments. Okay. Now, if you imagine that movement in a 737 or an Airbus A320 or whatever, that movement is going to be huge. Okay. If you try and approach an ILS approach at 90 degrees, you're going to lose. Okay, so we never approach ILS approaches at 90 degrees, okay, unless you're about 30 billion miles out. Now, to prove that it's more effective at 45 degrees, we'll set our heading again to 90 degrees out, so we'll go to 056. Now you'll see here that although heading mode was on earlier on and I didn't turn it off, because we've intercepted the localiser, it's not moving. Okay, I need to I need to press the heading mode. Heading mode is activated, the aircraft's going to turn, look at nav mode. Nav mode is now off, and you can see up here my primary means of navigation, lateral navigation, is heading. And you'll see that as we move away from that runway, bear in mind the middle section is the runway, we're moving out. Okay, and again, check the glide slope here, we're way above the glide slope. So again, the further away we move from the airport, the easier it is to intercept that glide slope. Now you've probably heard a few of my terms that I've used so far, which are stuff like established, intercepted, localiser. We've used fully established. Okay, these are all different terms that you would use to state where you are. So if I am established, that means I have the localiser or the glide slope. If I am fully established, that means I have both. So if an air traffic controller, not so much on the PlayStation, but if you're on VATSIM, one of those other networks, asks you to report when established, it'll be when you've got the localiser in one plane. If they ask you to call fully established, that is pretty much when you are on the localiser and the glide path. Okay, now at the moment we are at 90 degrees out from the runway, and what we're going to do now is we're going to turn again to 180 degrees out. So from 156 we're going to go to 326. And we'll show you what happens when we intercept the localiser from 45 degrees. Notice at the moment I haven't looked outside. Okay, there's no need to look outside. It's all about trusting your equipment. You could land this plane without any problems, without even looking outside. However, in actual flying training, whereas that is an instrument obviously approach, that's how instructors would rather you fly. Okay, instructors would much rather you fly without having to look inside. Okay, and it's eyes out. There's a good instructor on Facebook called Angle of Attack. He regularly puts paper across his screens for his instructors. Okay, and the reason for that is you can ascertain how fast you're going, not just by the sound of the engine, but also the speed that you get used to watching how fast this is going past you, but also the sounds the aircraft makes. Stuff like the stall, not depicted very well in the sim, but you definitely notice when you're about to hit a stall as well. The aircraft will buffet, everything goes quiet, the controls become light, etc, etc. Okay, as you can see here, we are now 180 degrees out to the runway. Bear in mind that is the runway, so we are to the right of the runway at the moment. That is the runway heading. The glide slope is above us. Now earlier on we came in at 90 degrees. We're now going to come in at 45 degrees to the runway. So I'm going to look at coming in around this angle here. So I would say at around 200 degrees. So let's have a look and see if that works. So we'll come in at 200 degrees. So, as the aircraft's moving, there's the 90 degree mark. We're going to come in at 200. Okay, we're going to come in at roughly 45 degrees to that runway. Okay, and again, we're going to click nav and we're not going to do anything. What will happen, potentially, because we're at 45 degrees, we might miss the glide slope. I doubt it, but we might do. But now, hopefully you agree that we are at 45 degrees to the ILS. Now, bearing in mind for our first approach earlier on, when we intercepted that localiser, we went past it. Okay, the aircraft took us past it because it didn't have enough time from that interception, that activating of the LNAV, the lateral navigation path, to intercept it properly. Okay, at 45 degrees, this will be easier. So we'll wait to get into it, but you'll see as we get closer to it, we can see in a minute, You can see as we're getting closer, bear in mind cedar, and I can't remember what one this is called, I can't read that. Obviously we're still quite a way out. You'll see as we get closer to it, the green line, the centre of the runway, will come closer. And then what we'll do one more orbit. After that, we'll talk about the glide slope. Now again, the really important thing to note about the glide slope is this diamond here. As that diamond, that is the glide slope. So at the moment, if you imagine someone on the floor of Birmingham with a laser pen, shining that laser pen at exactly 3 degrees up from the runway, that laser pen is currently above us. Okay, it's too high. We are below the glide slope. As that laser pen, you'll see this nav in a minute, I think it's going to turn. As that laser pen hits the aircraft at the center point, here's the localiser. Okay, we are now in line with the glide slope. Now look what happens here. At 45 degrees, we have hit that runway perfectly. Okay, it's a little bit to our right, but now the aircraft is going to make those really small changes to get us down to the runway. Okay, there is the value already within the last 5 minutes. You have seen why we don't intercept the localiser at 90 degrees and why 45 degrees is kind of the optimum angle from wherever we're coming from. Okay, obviously if we can do a long final with 20 miles to go, perfect, we're going to get there. Happy with that? Right, perfect. Now, we haven't done an ILS approach yet. We are doing a localiser approach, which means we are flying down the middle of the runway. If we carried on now, this aircraft will carry on flying at 2,500 feet, and it'll go straight past the runway. Okay, it will go straight past it, and it will just continue in this heading. Okay, and that's all it will do. However, now is a good time to start and actually do an ILS approach. So what we're going to do, we're going to set our heading at 90 degrees again. And this time, now that I've explained it twice, I'm not going to explain about the localiser. We have spoken about the glide slope a little bit, but we're going to talk about now the glide slope. I'm going to turn nav off now, and we're going to go heading. Bear in mind that as soon as you click heading, we don't need to select nav. And this will take us out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the glide slope indicator, so the actual marker here, to be at least 1.5 clicks above. Again, what you have to imagine is there is a guy or a girl with a laser pen sat on the base of the runway, shining that laser pen at exactly 3 degrees above the runway. Now again, we'll fly for a quarter of a mile out this way, and then we'll do the actual approach. Okay, that's enough. We will head back now. We'll go at another 90 degrees. So we'll go at 326. And we'll talk about the actual glide slope now. So again, at the moment, we are above the glide slope. We know that because our aircraft, which is the middle marker here, is above the glide slope marker here. Okay, what you'll see is as the glide slope comes up to meet us, it will come into the middle and then it will go above us. Okay, so we will be below the glide slope. If the marker is above that line, we are below the glide slope. If the marker is below, then we are above it. So we will let that come to us around 1 to 1.5 blocks above. Okay, so we've spoken about the localiser approach. Okay, we've now spoken about the glide slope, and now we're going to become fully established. Okay, we're going to become fully established on the ILS. Okay, and that is the term when we have both the glide slope and the localiser. You can see now the glide slope is creeping up. Again, that guy with the laser pen, we're currently still above the glide slope. So if we went onto approach mode now, it's not going to do anything, okay, because we are not intercepting it. Basically, our angle of attack down is going to be too great. For a Cessna, not a problem whatsoever. When you're looking at Boeing 737 or A330, you're in trouble, really, if you're too far above the glide slope. As we move closer out, again, like I said, we're going to do 2 clicks. 2 clicks above, and then we'll turn to a heading of around 240, and then we'll turn into the 45 degrees. Again, we've just done the tutorial, or done the little example of why we approach a glide slope at 45 degrees. Sorry, a localiser at 45 degrees. So now the glide slope is above us. If I turned at exactly 90 degrees now, I would remain below the glide slope, okay, so this would be perfect. However, for this, we want a little bit of wriggle room. So we'll get it to the 2nd notch. Bearing in mind that after a while, if we go too far out, we're not actually going to have a glide slope. That will do. Okay, so we are going to go now to 240 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to leave that just for a second while I talk, and then we'll go at the 45 degrees. Again, at this point, we need to start setting up now for our ILS. So I'm going to start slowing down, because we are going to come into the land now. Okay, so we are slowing down. Bearing in mind we are going to increase our speed as we hit the glide slope. We're 90 degrees now. That glide slope indicator there won't change. Okay, because we're at 90 degrees, we're not going any further or closer away from it. It won't change. It won't change drastically. It might move, a little bit above or beyond, but but above or below. It won't change that much. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn at 45 degrees. Okay, let's have a look where we are in relation to the airport. Yeah, we're getting close. Let's go 45 degrees. So again, bring that down because that makes it a little bit easier for our localiser intercept. And what you'll see now, as we go closer to the runway, glide slope will come down. Now at this point now I'm going to select nav. I'm going to go a little bit shallower because the glide slope is coming down. Now as that comes down, I'm going to carry on slowing my speed down. You'll see that localiser will come green in a minute when it takes over from the heading hold. I am keeping an eye on here, on that glide slope, because when that glide slope is in the middle, there's the localiser. It's going to turn, watch the glide slope. Watch what I do now. As soon as that the glide slope bug comes down, I'm going to click approach. So it's coming down now. If I click approach mode now, it will go into it. However, just to prove the point, you can see the runway in the screen. I click approach mode now. Verify on. It's on. Look what happens when it captures the glide slope. It now indicates that it's captured the glide slope. Now look here, our vertical speed. We're at an angle of around 2 to 3 degrees. We're on the glide slope, and the aircraft is now descending towards the runway ourselves. Because our nose is going down, our speed is going up. So again, we back off the throttle. So again, back off the throttle all the way down. Okay, and you'll see now that our aircraft will chase that all the way through. You'll see our aircraft is slightly to the left of the runway. It will make those relevant adjustments. Because it's 149 degrees, there might be wind acting on that. Okay, so we'll check our course. We are at 146. We'll just have a look and see if that comes in. If not, we're going to take manual control at the end anyway because it's not got auto land. As we take our attention away from here, I'm now looking forward, and we'll bring our speed down. We are still too fast, 105, so I'll bring that right down. We'll get it to approach speed. Notice here at the moment, our localiser is pretty much bob on, and our glide slope. So at this point, we will report to ATC that we are fully established. Okay, we are fully established on the localiser, which means we have the localiser and the glide slope. Just bearing in mind here as well, this isn't auto land. This aircraft won't auto land. It will just take us, and then it'll go bleh at the end because it's saturated. Okay, it hasn't got the auto land facility. And I'm going to take the throttle off. And as we take the throttle off and we get into the flaps region, we'll start bringing our flaps in. Bear in mind that with our flaps as well, it will want to raise the nose up. Okay, so our angle of attack is going to change, which means the actual approach is going to change from the flying control system. We'll show you that in a minute. If you have a look at our rate of descent at the moment, 450, minus 450. At 4 degrees, bearing in mind the approach for this is 3 degrees, so we're a little bit out. There's 5, okay, but it's also some slowing down, and the automatic flying control system needs that time. If I put a notch of flaps in now, and look what happens, we're climbing. See, we're climbing. What's going to happen is the aircraft notices that, and it will adjust accordingly. Okay, now I am going to slow down quite a bit here. If you have a look at our angle tag, it's now 3 degrees, so I'll increase the speed just a little bit. Not too much. Notice how we're still bob on here. We're still bob on here. I haven't even looked outside yet. There we go, so we're doing all right. And I'm going to put the second notch of flaps in now. Again, the exact same thing happens. We start to climb a little bit, where our angle of attack changes. The aircraft will adapt. There's the aircraft adapting. Now, because it's gone more of a nose down attitude for a start, we had a little slight increase in speed, and then now we're decreasing again. So again, I want to do this approach at around 65 knots. We're doing all right here. At this point, it's probably a good idea to look outside the window. And again, I told you to focus on this picture here when we've done our first approach, okay? So a lot of people will get lost in this picture. Now, bearing in mind that we shouldn't be wanting to touch down on the threshold, okay? We want to touch down the touchdown markers. What I want to do is I want to have those touchdown markers just above my dash. Okay, so if I go back to normal view, you see my touchdown markers just above the dash. That is the vision, so that is the sight I want to see all the way down. Now, if you have a look at this on a 4-degree glide slope, okay, it's pretty much got me there. Okay, if I increase the speed a little bit, it will have me there. Okay, but this has got me on a precision radar approach, basically. When I say radar, I mean radio frequency. It's not radar. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to try and land this. I'm going to just prove the point that it's not going to land itself, and I'm going to let the aircraft do it. Okay, it'll start getting saturated towards the end. As we come down, I'm going to slow down and put the last notch of flaps in. Look what happens. So the last notch of flaps comes in. You see the glide slope getting away from me, so it's going to throw my nose down. It's going to catch up with it. I'm adding a little bit of speed so I don't stall. Again, I'm not touching anything, but it's starting now. You can see it's going to start struggling. Keeping that at 60 knots for the approach. You'll see in a minute it'll just have no idea what it wants to do. Okay, because by now I should have easily taken over this. We'll come in, and this will take you pretty much down to the end. Now again, if you have a look at that threshold, it's not wanting us to land the threshold, it's taking us towards the markers. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the autopilot, because it will saturate it. If you have a look now, my nose is starting to come up. It won't land it for us. There's the nose coming up. It won't land it for us. Okay, so we'll land it ourselves. So again, what I'm doing now is I'm looking towards the end of the runway. I'm going to come off the throttle, keeping that end of the runway flare, and I want that end of the runway above my dash all times, and it will have that nice soft touchdown. That was a little bit harder than the last one, but the point being there. Okay, we're going to go up to flaps 10 again, and we're going to take off. A little bit of a left-hand turn, so I have a little bit of a left wing down there. So right-hand turn, a little bit of left wing down. Stay in the middle of this runway. There we go. We've got that speed, a little bit more speed, please. Stay into the right, and we're going to come up. I'm going to take the flaps out, generate that speed. Okay, so now we'll do a short field landing, and that'll be it then, because I've been gobbing off for over an hour. One question I did have on my Instagram earlier on is to talk about the stall, so we'll do that in a minute, and then we can do a little bit about spins as well. Now, I can't remember the guy, but I was watching a video of an American instructor earlier on talking about stall. And stall is basically the pin and the boundary layer over the wings. So basically when there's not enough airflow over the wings to keep the aircraft flying. Right, that's probably the basic way of putting it without getting too theoretical. Now there's checks you do before a stall, including your checks above and below. You check your harnesses, check for loose articles, and all that sort of stuff. Obviously this being the sim, we're not too worried about it. I'm going to fly, I think this is the M42. I'm going to fly along the M42. The reason why I know that, there's a visual reporting point up here for the M42 services. Some services up here, visual reporting points, that's for another day. That's all about VFR flying. Now we're going to have a go at entering a stall. We're at 1,000 feet, we've got enough room to get out of a stall, so let's have a go. Okay, we're going to try a power off stall, and then we'll try power on stall and see what happens, see what the difference is. So key signs of a stall is everything goes a little bit quiet. Controls, as we enter a stall, I could thrash my left and my right aileron around. Because we've not got the airflow run over, we've got no control authority, so nothing will happen. Although what I've noticed on the sim is actually things do happen. A little bit unrealistic, but there we go. And the aircraft will start to fall. Primarily for this, the nose will drop. We can recover it quite quickly. So let's have a look at it now. So we'll get into straight level flight. Once we're there, let's get that picture sorted. Let's get that trim. We'll get it to 0 on the trim. Okay, oh, too much. There we go. Okay, so what happens on a power off stall? So all I'm going to do, power off. I'm going to pitch up to about 20 degrees, 10 degrees. Okay, and keep going. Watch that speed. You get the stall warning. Look what happens. I'm going to put up more. The nose drops. I'm pulling up, pulling up, pulling up, pulling up. Look at that authority. I can't get any left and right until I start getting that forward speed. Literally, you go nose down, get your speed back up, engine on. Okay, and then you're done. So let's do that again. Power's back on now. We haven't lost any altitude there. So power off, nose up. There's the stall, nose down, get your forward speed, and then return to normal flying attitude. Perfect. Now what happens with a power on stall? So let's do that. Let's get a bit of power, get a little bit more height because we could enter a spin here. Now a spin is something they've taken out of the UK syllabus for PPL training. You don't demonstrate a spin on your PPL anymore. However, you're expected to have an awareness of it. Now, I've tried to spin these aircraft a couple of times. Sometimes I do struggle with it. I did manage to get a spin on it yesterday, I think. And basically what a spin is you're going to be plummeting towards the floor, and the aircraft, depending on which way your wing drops, whether that's left or right, is going to start spiraling towards the ground, okay? And basically, the way to get out of it, and the way that I've been trained, bearing in mind I've only ever spun in a glider, is basically hands off your controls. So you basically just relax, hands off the controls. You put the rudder into the opposite direction in which you're spinning. So if you're spinning this direction, you'll put full right rudder, and if you're spinning this direction, you'll do full left rudder. So let's have a go. So we're going to go for power on stall. I'm going to bring this back to 2,200. Let's see if we can get it to spin. Let that settle. And we're going to get up into a 20 degree. Is that 20 degrees? I can't read that from here. Yeah, 20 degrees is there. So let's come back 20 degrees. And I'm going to throw a wing over. There's the wing coming over now. You can see it. There's the spin. So it's not depicted very well. I'll carry on here. I'll go power off. And if you can imagine that's me spinning, okay, I'll go full right rudder, get rid of that spin, pull the lever back, get that forward speed. I mean, it doesn't depict very well on here at all. I'll put that power on. Bear in mind there, we lost 1,000 foot. Doesn't depict very well at all on here, okay? It might be, I'll tell you what I'll do after this. I'm going to throw myself into a glider and see if it works how I've done it before. So we've spoken about stalls, spoken about spins, and that's pretty much it. We've spoken about general circuit flying, we've spoken about the ILS approach, and we've spoken about stalls and spins. So that is probably it for this evening. For this, I'll put this onto my YouTube channel, and yeah, I'll leave it on there. But hopefully, I've had quite a few people on tonight, which has been good watching. And then I've not had any questions actually, which is a bit of a shame. Had one on the Instagram, but that was it. But hopefully, this video will come of use to at least one of you. In the meantime, what we're going to do is get away from the M42. I'm pretty sure that's the M42. And we're going to get back to Birmingham. And we're going to have tea and stickies. And of course, what we'll do, we'll just follow the manual ILS approach here. And we'll get in, yeah? Right, what is this? Just now. Okay, so let's have a look where we are. We're quite close, actually, to be fair. We're up there with the glide slope. You see the glide slope here. As we come in, the glide slope's there, so we'll start our descent before we even get anywhere near the localiser. Start bringing that speed down. There's the glide slope, so I'll start descending before we even get there. I can see the airport now. Around 550, we're a little bit above. Get that speed down. Now we'll get the first notch of flaps in. Now again, I'm going to make the changes that I need to make to compensate for the flaps. Bear in mind that increases the angle of attack, increases lift at slower speeds. Come in, we're a little bit low compared to the glide slope. And as we come in, again, we're coming in at 45 degrees. We're not using the actual glide slope here. It's just a reference. And we're coming in here at about 30 degrees. Now, the other thing I want to point out to people is, again, people think that we need to, I'm a little bit low, people think that we need to focus solely on touching down on the threshold. We don't need to touch down on the threshold, okay? It's nice if you can get anywhere near it, but especially in a Cessna, you're going to have plenty of room, especially at an airport like Birmingham. Now, again, we're a little bit high. There we go, glide slopes there. We're actually pretty good here. It'll be quite a sharp turn onto the final. Glide slope's just below us. We'll drop the nose a little bit. And again, I'm gonna overfly half the runway here, so we can see that we've got plenty of time to settle. So there'll be times when people are coming in here and they're like this and they're bumping and they're like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. Okay, and they start panicking. Okay, because from above, the actual runway looks quite small. However, what I do, let me come back up that glide slope. I'm going to start my turn. I'll start my turn early. If you have a look at that glide slope, I'm going to hit that absolutely bob on by the threshold, I reckon. We start the turn early, but we also finish it early. So I'm going to come in and start finishing it now. Bearing in mind we're nowhere near the centre. There I am. And the thing we haven't spoken about really is the PAPI lights. My power's coming off, and again, I'm going to leave this late. So I'm going to land on the midway point. So that point there, I'm not going to come fully off the power just yet. I'm going to come over here. Can I leave that for a minute? Just to keep the point. I'm going to bring in a notch of flaps. Okay, so about 3/4 or a quarter of the way down the runway. Okay, now I'm going to land. So, again, going to come off that power, flare nice and early.
Stall.
Don't worry about the stall marker. We're going to get that.
Stall.
And flare, 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 flare. And there we are. We're on. Okay, now obviously that's not how you would land in real life. You'd do it much softer than that, but I was just proving a point. Okay, and look at that. We still have so much of the runway left that we can get off to the right. You know, we haven't even used not even a quarter of the runway. And we'll turn off here. And we'll fly head on. Oh no, that's going to be for us. Right, we'll get into it looks like a compass swing area here. I'll go into this. I'll park up. And that is it. An hour and what, 12 minutes of circuit flying, ILS approaches, and stalls and spins.